قال المؤلف رحمه الله. The author said, may Allah have mercy upon him, وقد شرح ذلك في كتب الفقه في المذاهب المعتبرة. This has been explained in the books of jurisprudence according to the regarded schools of law. وحكموا أن المتلفظ بها يكفر. And they have ruled that the one who utters that blasphemes. What's that? That is the objection to God. That's the last thing he mentioned in our session that we read last time, which was 2 weeks ago. قال الله تعالى, said Allah, exalted is He, إن شر الدواب عند الله الذين كفروا فهم لا يؤمنون. Indeed, يعني Allah the Exalted said, indeed the worst of crawling things to Allah are those that blaspheme. They are not believers. Yani, the worst of creatures that traverse the face of the earth. The worst of crawling creatures or creeping creatures are those that blaspheme. That's only humans and genies. Of all the crawling creatures or creeping creatures, only humans and genies blaspheme. Ash-SharH, the explanation. Ad-dawab jam'u dabbah. This word in the verse, ad-dawab, is the plural of dabbah. وهي كل ما يمشي على وجه الأرض. This refers to anything that walks the face of the earth. من إنسان وبهائم وحشرات, whether humans or animals or vermin like insects. هذا معناها في أصل اللغة. This is what it means in the origin of the language. ثم تعارف الناس على إطلاقها على ما يركب من البهائم. Then, yani later, it became familiar to the people, or it became the custom of people to use it for ridden animals, like donkey or mule. ولا يصح في القرآن هذا التفسير. And to explain the word in this way is not valid in the Quran. It's not valid to use this meaning to explain what came in the Quran for the word dabba or dawab. Both of those words came in the Quran, the singular and the plural. فالإنسان يقال له في أصل اللغة دابة. And so the human, it is said about him according to the origin of the language, dabba. So D-A, underline that A, B-B-A-H, dabba. لأنه يدب على وجه الأرض, because he crawls over the face of the earth. Let's look at these letters, dal, ba. Let's see if my program will work quickly. So let's look in maqayis, because it gives you dabba. So we're going to look under the chapter of dal. And although there's really 3 letters, dal, ba, ba, the way this dictionary is, you need to look under 2 letters, dal, ba only. Here it is, dal, ba. He says, dal and ba is an authentic root in Arabic and is consistent. He says, وَهُوَ حَرَكَةٌ عَلَى الْأَرْضِ أَخَفُّ مِنَ الْمَشِي. It is to move on the earth, or move across the earth, or over the earth. To move over the earth, it is a movement over the earth that is lighter than walking, less than walking. تَقُولُ دَبَّ دَبِيبًا. So, yani it's like to mean to crawl, or to creep, or maybe slither. وَكُلُّ مَا مَشَى عَلَى الْأَرْضِ فَهُوَ دَابَّةٌ. And everything that walks over the earth or on the ground is a dabba. He says here, it is said in Arabic, naqatun daboob, a she-camel that's daboob, a she-camel that's daboob, إذا كانت لا تمشي من كثرة اللحم إلا دبيبا. That's if such a she-camel can't walk because of being so fat. It can only crawl. So that's really what I was looking for. If there's a difference between the mashi and the dabib, so that's what he's saying there. Mashi is walking. Okay, so that's good. Alhamdulillah. The Shaykh says, فَالْإِنسَانُ يُقَالُ لَهُ فِي أَصْلِ اللُّغَةِ دَابَّةٌ. And so the human, he is called, according to the origin of the language, a dabba. لأنه يدب على وجه الأرض, because he crawls over the face of the earth, or creeps over the face of the earth. والآية المذكورة معناها أن الكافر هو أحقر المخلوقات. And the mentioned verse means that the blasphemer, meaning whether he's a human or a genie, is the most despicable of creations. وقد ورد في الحديث الذي رواه ابن حبان وأحمد في مسنده والطبراني في الكبير. And it came in the hadith narrated by Ibn Hibban and narrated by Ahmad in his Musnad and by At-Tabarani in Al-Mu'jam Al-Kabir. لا تفتخروا بآبائكم الذين ماتوا في الجاهلية. Boast not about your fathers who died during the era of ignorance. فوالذي نفسي بيده. For I swear by he who controls my soul. إنما يدهدهه الجعل بمنخريه خير من آبائكم الذين ماتوا في الجاهلية. Indeed, what the dung beetle pushes with his nostrils is better than your fathers who died in the era of ignorance. Yani, so this hadith then proves what? Proves that not being accountable does not ward off from a kafir a low status. Having kufr is enough to confirm for a kafir the most despicable status, even if he's not accountable. A ala shirk, meaning they died upon paganism. لأن الكفار الذين ماتوا في الجاهلية قسمان. Because the blasphemers who died during the era of ignorance are of two categories. قسم بلغتهم دعوة الأنبياء إلى توحيد الله وقسم لم تبلغهم. One group are those who received the call of the prophets to monotheism, like the call of Jesus reached them, or the call of Moses reached them, or the call of another prophet reached them. It's possible that, for example, someone received the call of David, for example, and then he's going to be accountable. وَقِسْمٌ لَمْ تَبْلُغْهُمْ. And there's another group of kuffar during that time who did not receive such a call. وَكُلٌّ كَانُوا مُشْتَرِكِينَ بِعِبَادَةِ غَيْرِ اللَّهِ. But all of them share in worshiping other than God. وَهَذَا الْحَدِيثُ يَشْمَلُ سَائِرَ أَنْوَاعِ الْكُفَّارِ. And this hadith also includes every other type of kafir, every other type of blasphemer, not just the ones from the time of ignorance. لأن معنى الكفر يشملهم, because the significance of blasphemy is inclusive of all of them. The meaning of blasphemy includes all of them. Yani, here in the hadith, إنما يدهدهه الجعل بمنخريه خير من آبائكم الذين ماتوا في الجاهلية. So this is a good lesson here. If a person doesn't have a lot of knowledge and he read this hadith, then he might think that the Prophet ﷺ has given a judgment that's particular to the kuffar who died during the era of ignorance, because that's all that appears to him. And he would say to you, look, he says here, they died during the era of ignorance. This is what the hadith is talking about. But because he lacks knowledge, then he doesn't realize that this hadith is not restricted to them. What's the proof that this hadith is not restricted to them? A question. Yani, we can prove it by asking a question. Why do they have this status? Do they have this status because they died during the era of ignorance? If they had that status because they died during the era of ignorance, then yes. But that's not why they have this status. They have this status because they were kuffar. And then if that's why, then we have to be consistent. So it means even if they weren't from the era of ignorance, they're still going to have that status. So take a lesson from that. That's how somebody who's not qualified is going to not know how to explain an ayah or a hadith. He's going to be the same one who tells you not to follow the madhabs and to only follow the hadiths in the Quran. He only follows himself. He follows his imagination and delusions. The Shaykh says here, وَهَذَا الْحَدِيثُ يَشْمَلُ سَائِرَ أَنْوَاعِ الْكُفَّارِ. This hadith includes all types of blasphemers. لِأَنَّ مَعْنَى الْكُفْرِ يَشْمَلُهُمْ. Because the meaning of blasphemy, yani the significance of being blasphemers, includes all of them. وَإِنْ كَانُوا بِالنِّسْبَةِ لِعَذَابِ الْآخِرَةِ يَخْتَلِفُ حَالُهُمْ. Although pertaining to the torture of the afterlife, they have different cases. So maybe that person who doesn't know how to interpret properly, he might even bring this argument for you. He would say, well, if they were not from the time of ignorance, if they came after the time of ignorance, wouldn't they be tortured? And if they're in the time of ignorance, they're not going to be tortured, right? So you say, yeah, that's right. You say, so they're different. They're different there. They're different in the status of being tortured, but not in the status of being despicable to God. Why they are despicable to God? Because they committed blasphemy. Why they won't be tortured in the afterlife, if they're not, because they weren't accountable. So that's different. And the Prophet here is not talking about them not being tortured in the afterlife if they weren't accountable. He's talking about their despicability to God. فَالَّذِينَ مَاتُوا عَلَى الْكُفْرِ ولم تبلغهم الدعوة فالذين ماتوا على الكفر ولم تبلغهم الدعوة لا يعذبهم الله بالنار. So those who died upon blasphemy, but the call never reached them, Allah will not torture them in hell. أما الذين بلغتهم الدعوة, but concerning those to whom the da'wah has come, the call has come, فَلَمْ يُسْلِمُوا, and then they didn't embrace Islam, فَهُمُ الَّذِينَ يُعَذَّبُونَ بِالنَّارِ, they are those who are to be tortured in hell. خَالِدِينَ فِيهَا, immortals therein, مُخَلَّدِينَ, staying forever. وهذا الحديث صريح في أن الكافر أخص ما خلق الله. And this hadith is explicit about the blasphemer being the most despicable thing that God created. So that's the truth right there, whether a person likes it or he doesn't like it. That's why any person, any Muslim, needs to be educated about his religion. He should not say, we respect all the people, no matter what they believe, for example. Because, what does that mean to him? If he means we respect all, when he says we respect all the people, if he means we're not rude to the people, okay. We're not rude. General statement there. But if he means we give honor to all the people, no matter what they believe, then how could he give honor to all the people when Allah Ta'ala tells us that some of them are the worst thing that he created? So the Muslims need to be educated about their religion so that they don't say what's against the religion. And a person needs to be mindful not to repeat after any speaker. And one needs to know that status is from God. Status is not by money. And status is not by being first. And status is not by something else superficial. Status is from God in the first place. And God is the one who told us about what warrants status. And the first thing that warrants status is what? Having belief. Talking about for a living creature. Not talking about inanimate things to which God gave status, like the Kaaba and like the Arsh. Talking about amongst living beings. Status is first and foremost by belief. If you don't have belief, you will not be anywhere close to a high status. You will be very, very far from a high status. Because if you're a kafir, before you can even get close to having high status, you have to be able to supersede the animals in status. That includes pigs and dogs and worms. You'd have to be able to supersede them in status. And you can't do it because the worst things that creep over the earth are those things that blaspheme. Then if you have belief, then piety is going to raise your rank. And you won't be able to achieve piety without knowledge. Knowledge will raise your rank too. But knowledge without practice will impede your progress. Knowledge without practice will impede your progress. Knowledge and practice, that's the piety, yani. That's what's going to make you excel. Intelligence is not what gives a person status. Beauty is not what gives a person status. Money is not what gives a person status. In reality, that is. But some people become deluded, like judges and actors, celebrities. When people have lots of money and connections, they become deluded. They see themselves as being very important. The Shaykh says, وَمَعْنَى مَا يُدَهْدِهُهُ الْجُعَلُ بِمَنْخِرَيْهِ. The meaning of what the dung beetle pushes with his two nostrils is أي القذر ليتقوت به. It is the dung, the filth. That's what the dung beetle pushes with his two nostrils. ليتقوت به, the dung that he takes for sustenance. So the Prophet said, this dung is better. The dung itself, not the beetle, the dung. Better than the kafir. وَالْجُعَلُ هُوَ حَشَرَةٌ صَغِيرَةٌ سَوْدَاء. The ju'al is a small black vermin. تَسُوقُ الْقَذَرُ. It pushes or drives dung. الَّذِي يَخْرُجُ مِنْ بَنِي آدَمَ. The feces that comes out of the human. تَجْعَلُهُ حُبَيْبَاتٍ. It turns that feces into pellets, makes that feces, forms it or molds it into, shapes that feces into pellets. تَسُوقُهُ. And then it drives it, yani rolls it, sets it on course. لِتَتَقَوَّتَ بِهِ. So that it would take it as sustenance. فهذا الذي يسوقه الجعل الرسول قال خير من هؤلاء الذين كان الناس في أيام الجاهلية يفتخرون بهم. So this substance that is driven by the dung beetle, the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that it is better than those humans that people during the era of ignorance bragged about. يقولون هذا جدي. They say, this is my grandfather. كان كذا. He was such and such. أبي كان كذا. My father was such and such. فالمعنى, and so the meaning is كفوا عن الافتخار بهؤلاء. So the meaning is refrain from boasting about those. الذين ما يسوقه الجعل بأنفه خير منهم لكفرهم. Those whom what the dung beetle drives, yani pushes, with its nose or snout, is better than them because of their blasphemy. Yani, any good works that they do in the world don't ward this low status off from them. وذلك لأن شكر الخالق المنعم لا يصح مع عبادة غيره. And that is because appreciating the endowing creator is not valid while worshiping someone else. أو تكذيب رسوله, nor is it valid while contradicting his messenger, الذي أرسله ليتبعه الناس, his messenger whom he sent so that the people would follow him. ولو أنفق هذا الكافر مثل جبل ذهبا ولو أنفق هذا الكافر مثل جبل ذهبا للمساكين والأرامل. And had this blasphemer given in charity a mountain of gold to the poor and the widows, لا يكون شاكرا لخالقه, he still will not be appreciative of his creator. الذي أنعم عليه, his creator who endowed upon him, بالوجود, by giving him existence, والعقل, and giving him a mind. فلا يكون الكافر شاكرا لله, and so a blasphemer would not be thankful to God. Subhanallah, you would hear Christians say, I thank God so much, or so many people say, I thank God. If these people don't worship Allah, they don't thank Him. They don't thank God. They don't appreciate God. مهما عمل من الخدمات, regardless of whatever services he performs, للناس, for the people. ومهما كان عنده عطف ورحمة وحنان على المنكوبين والملهوفين, and regardless of how much compassion and mercy and empathy he has for the downtrodden and the distressed. الكفار هم أحقر خلق الله, the blasphemers are the most despicable of the creations of God. So that's a true statement. Now, is it the wisest thing to say this true statement anytime, anywhere? No. It's not necessary. It's not a condition. The Prophet ﷺ didn't make that a condition. And in fact, Allah Ta'ala in the Quran, He advises us not to insult the kuffar so that the kuffar would insult the religion. Let me see if I can pull up this ayah. ولا تسبوا الذين يدعون من دون الله فيسبوا الله عدوا بغير علم. Do not insult those who worship other than Allah, so that they would insult Allah as transgression without knowledge. That's Surah Al-An'am, verse 108. Still a fact, though. It doesn't mean that you should be rude to non-Muslims. The Prophet was not, alayhi salatu wassalam. But for sure, you should not be a mudahin. Mudahin, you can translate that in so many ways. A brown noser. Yani. I could say other words. A kiss up. Or other words. So if it came down to it, if you had no other choice, then you're going to say what you got to say. If the kafir tried to corner you and say, do you believe that the kuffar are the worst creatures ever? Then yes or no? Just tell me yes or no. Are you afraid? No, you're not going to be afraid. This was the status that Allah gave them. That's how the kuffar will come at you. They know what's in the religion, some of them. So they will attack you on it because they don't think you have the guts to stand up to it. And that's going to be for them a proof that it's wrong in the first place, because you can't even find it in yourself to defend it. That's what they're going to say for the marriage of the Prophet to Aisha. That's what they're going to say about carrying out jihad. And that's what they're going to say about other things. The Shaykh says, وَإِنْ كَانَتْ صُورَتُهُمْ صُورَةَ الْبَشَرِ, even if their shape is that of humans, what they are, yani, even if their shape is that of humans, they still have this low status. وَذَلِكَ لِأَنَّهُمْ أَضَاعُوا أَعْظَمَ حُقُوقِ اللَّهِ عَلَى عِبَادِهِ, and that is because they squandered, they were negligent about fulfilling the greatest of God's rights over his slaves. فَكَفَرُوا بِاللَّهِ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ, and so they disbelieved in God, the invincible and great.